Hey everyone, you're listening to Your Daily Brew, the weekly podcast about nothing, about anything, featuring your hosts Ezequiel Orellana and Jeffrey Cherian.
So grab your favorite cup of brew and sip along with us as we dive into our world of casual conversations.
You know what's funny? It's like, okay, we could preface by what are we talking about today? Oh, your gain is up so high. Oh no. Okay, what are we talking about today?
Topic 10 is an interesting topic, right? It's our last one. It's supposed to be our big season finale, right? So possibly, like in my head, it's like, oh, we want to end out in a bang
for season 1.
Yeah, I mean that's what we thought about for the intro too. It's like, oh, we have to start off with something big so that way people can get interested, hooked on it, right?
And
but
we're like,
are we doing this for people? It's more for we're having fun with it. I think it's like, it's just us and whoever listens. It's like they get a kick out of it too. That's great.
No, we're doing it for views, for listens. No.
So in that vein,
no.
I think I had the idea of doing like reflecting on how we did the season.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's good to reflect on, accomplishments, especially in your regular life, because, it's good to...
It's the end of year wrap up.
Appreciate it and learn from it and grow from it.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to do for this one.
Okay. Yeah. So to that point, it was, no, man. What was I was just mentioning something.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, to that point, I was gonna ask you. I was gonna be like, well, how do you feel about the progression of what we've done between number 1 and number 10 now, with respect to, let's say, content, right?
Content.
Because that was a strain for a long time.
Because I think from the get-go, when we were first discussing the ideas for it, it's like, what are we going to do this about? I mean, the whole premise was a podcast about nothing, about anything. So then it's like, well, that's a myriad of options.
Yeah, which is great, but it's overwhelming.
Yeah, and then it's also like when you like, say you're writing an essay, right? You go, when you want to pick a topic, you don't go broad, right? Maybe when you're a kid, maybe. But if you're gonna write about music, there's so much you can write about music. You can write a whole book about music, but you have to write an essay. It's like 5 pages. So you usually got to hone in on a specific topic, like music as perceived by infants and like the first 3 months. Like it's very specific, so that way you can hone in on it and you don't write too much. The same thing with a podcast. I feel like when you hone in on it, it's like, should we hone in on a specific thing or do we talk general? I think what we did for our case is we talk general, so that way we don't stagnate a specific topic.
Yeah.
And I think that's worked so far. But now in the future, this poses an issue because it's like, oh, we talked about music already. So now how are we going to keep talking about this topic? So now we're going to have to hone in on specifics. I'm thinking.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking for season
correct.
2.
Yeah.
Because so now I feel like it's not a bad, what we did so far is not bad. We have topics that we like now. So I guess for season 2, we hone in on those specifics. I think it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But as far as progression goes, I think we kind of stumbled into some of those, huh? Like it's like the week before, so what do we do? What do we do? What was it for? Like I think it was after episode 4, the coffee one, we're like,
Like, what are we doing now?
Yeah. 4 was like, we're the Daily Brew, so we should do something coffee related.
Yeah.
Yeah. First episode was the toughest though, I think, because it's like, what do we put out? What's
like, how do we start out?
Yeah.
How do you? It's just like I like your little analogy of like you're writing your 5-page essay. It's just like you
that's
need
how
to
I
start out. You need to start out strong with a strong thesis, a strong opening, to grab the reader or the audience's attention. And it was just kind of like, how do we start? And we ended up starting by just, this is who we are. But I thought that was like, And I really liked it because
I think
I
it's
thought it was
genuine,
genuine,
upfront.
and I thought it was necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Because then, even before we did anything, it was just kind of like murmurings of like, oh yeah, we're gonna start a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always hated, and I know I mentioned this before, but it's like I always hated the idea of someone just like coming up to me and being like, "You? Like why? Like what are you gonna talk about
Mm-hmm.
though? Like aren't there so many?" It's kind of like that. It's that, and it's just like I don't care if there's so many. Like I just want to do one. It's fun. It's better than just sitting on my ass at home and like or like having ideas and not like doing like manifesting them in some way. Like it's so much better to just do the thing.
I think that's
in
what we
your
talked
head.
about the first episode too. It's
Yeah.
like, I mean, and how I see it too. It's like, at the end of the day, even if it sucks, that's all you did something.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I see it. Even if like, yeah, it's better than sitting on your
Look
ass.
look at like most if not all like YouTube channels when they start out
it's gonna suck,
a couple subscribers, and
like
it's not that great. I mean, like you could have all the gear in the world and maybe your videos just rock, right? But like when you start out, you have this big huge like inner debate, this inner conflict of, well, as much as like I want to do this for fun, there's still a part of me that really wants to grab people's attention, like wants to build that audience. But if I don't really have an audience or my audience isn't growing like as fast as I want it to, like why am I going to invest all this time and work for like 20 people? It's kind of like that.
But it's also like you got to find your footing too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I see like with season premieres and like episode like shows that start off.
Most shows like season 1, the pilot season.
It's kind of rough.
Yeah,
because they're trying to find their footing. Like you look at the Friends, like the show Friends, like I guess they're trying to figure out their characters and like their spiel, right?
Yeah, look,
it's
Friends,
a little awkward in the beginning.
Friends, Seinfeld, The Office, like 3 of the greatest shows, TV sitcoms of all time, and all of their season 1s, you cannot appreciate their season 1s until you've watched the whole season and you come back. Like you will not appreciate it. Why? Because it's like all their season 1s kind of suck. Like
they're trying to find their footing. They're trying to figure out what the show, is.
Exactly.
I think I could compare it to also like a musician who's trying to figure out their sound.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're starting out, it's like
the first album is gonna be like it's gonna be okay.
It's like hit or miss, and then you find out later on they change it up and they mature, and then there's always the fans that are like, oh, I missed our earlier sound. This is so different from what there used to be. But they've grown. They're like they're not gonna be a kid forever.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think the same thing with season 1. This season 1, I'd compare it to that, or even like, well, we're starting first episode, but I also say it's season 1. I think we found how our niche, how we're good at operating it. We got a certain flow. We have the audio quality down. I think
more or less.
Yes, I think we're getting our footing, and now we just have to double down on that formula in order for season 2 to be even better.
So, I guess to that point of season 2 being better, I guess I should mention this now.
Go nuts.
For a while for season 1,
I feel like I know what you're gonna say, but I like it.
For a while for season 1, I'm kind of like, as much as like this idea of starting this thing, this podcast was an idea that I had in my head. The seed was planted by Danny, and it was just like, all right, like I want to do this thing. And like in any situation where you pitch the idea and you try and recruit or whatever, and then you're like, all right, you have your team, you're ready to do this thing. All you really want, like you want to make sure it's kind of like whatever the vision you have, you try your best to kind of like just mirror it until you realize reality says totally different. Like your vision isn't realistic. Your vision won't technically work.
Yeah.
So like for me, from my perspective, it was like when I came to you and I was just like, here's the idea, let's do this, whatever. Like it's like I always thought in the back of my head, I'm kind of like whenever we would debate, go back and forth about like topic ideas, how we're gonna talk, the need for equal amounts of talk and stuff like that. Like let's not do this, let's do that. And then it was just kind of like, oh, but like I think this will be better. And it was just like that, those strains and stresses. And it was just kind of like, for me, I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, like I just, why can't it be easy? Like why can't it just be like the physical manifestation of what's in my head? Like this is all I wanted to do. Why is this so difficult? Why am I getting so much pushback? Not even just from you, but like other people are making comments here or there about certain things, and it's just like, why? Like this should be easy to the point. Like this is just like easy listening. Like you're listening to human music, and like boop boop boop. Like for me, it's just kind of like this is just easy peasy.
Yeah,
like,
you just put a setup and record. I mean, technically, it should be. It could be that easy, right?
So and I'm like, man, post a couple pictures a week, and boom, you know, you got a podcast, whatever.
Why is it so? But there's more.
But there's so much more to it, and as much and as I it's funny because it's like when it comes to the things that, you know, I think of or the ideas I have, and I know this is true for most people. When you know, when I had this idea, it's like it's my baby. Like I don't want anyone to touch it. I don't want anyone to do anything with it. I don't want anyone else to like look over it, take care of it, whatever. No, it's mine. And it's just like, well, that's not how it's gonna work, because it's like you can't always be there. You're not always going to be able to take care of it. Sometimes you're going to need a helping hand. Sometimes, you know, you're going to need a babysitter. Sometimes you're going to need, guess what? Like children's Tylenol isn't always going to cure their like fever or something. Sometimes you got to go to the doctor for help. Sometimes,
you know,
and like
help.
Yeah.
I think it makes the idea better. Like I know with like certain albums, people like there's artists, first person comes to mind, Kanye West. He's a great collaborator. He doesn't do things like by himself. He enlists a whole bunch of people, like producers, musicians, whole bunch of talents to create his album. And I think it's the same thing that works here. It's like as much as a solo person can go about and create their vision, I think it's so much more when you have other people join in. Albeit it's going to be a lot more tougher because you know have varying opinions and clashing ideas and stuff like that. But it can also work in the opposite effect where it can bring about more refined, better idea. Yeah. Like maybe you'll have one vision for the podcast, right? And then, you know, Danny comes along. Like you know, how we were doing with the podcast picture. Yeah. And for social media. Like we had this idea of, you know, the Bitmojis. We were thinking like, oh, this would be cute.
She came along and just berated us.
we had the idea of putting the Bitmoji. I think we probably mentioned this before. Our Bitmojis as a profile picture for social media. And we thought this was a great idea.
We thought it was funny. We thought it was funny.
But I'm so thankful for Danny. Because you know, our vision was fine. We thought this was okay, right?
It was fine for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Danny came along and made our social media so much more professional.
Yeah, she was like, screw you, this is trash.
If anything, I feel like part of the reason why our podcast is like has the amount of listeners, well, also because of our friends, right? But also our social media is great.
Our social media
somebody's podcast said like, oh, this is how you do a social media page for a podcast.
Yeah, there was a few comments from other podcasts and other like content creators that Danny didn't respond. Like she actually, there are certain comments that we've gotten where she's like, I don't know what to answer for this. Like this is a question for you guys, so like you can go ahead and answer it. So I went ahead and I answered those questions. Like it was like all for like, I forget which post it was. I don't think it was Thursday. It was last Monday's post.
I thought I saw that.
It was from last Monday's post. It was like 3 or 4 different comments from different content creators, and I responded to each of them. I think they all had fantastic questions. Yeah. I want to go to, maybe you just pull up their Instagram and give them a quick shout out or something. But the fact
is, like we wouldn't have like the engagement if it wasn't for that like social media aspect that she covers.
Exactly.
So, in that vein, like, having more people than just yourself to, you know, work on that idea is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But it's obviously going to take a little bit of strain, and there's the working, collaborating, and then sacrificing your original idea for like a greater idea. So push and pull, but hopefully it works out for the better.
No, for sure. And that was like the biggest struggle for me for doing this thing, where it's just kind of like, I just want to do it. And I know as like much of a like jerk move it was for me to do this, I didn't outwardly say it because I knew it wasn't right. It wasn't the right thing to say. I there were times where I'm just like, why can't it just be the way I want it to be?
Yeah.
Like,
Why
why
don't you
do
just throw it out there?
why can't it just be like that?
Yeah.
And it's just like, because it can't. Because the way I want it to be is basic, generic, and just like at the end of the day, lazy. Like,
well, not necessarily.
Like it's lazy. It's lazy in its own right. Of there's so much more potential that we have that we can. There's so many more things that we can do. Like,
I still think we have like so much more we can do.
The video
is one. And I think we can get back to that if you want to work on these questions first. But like, yeah, video is something we have to discuss at some point.
We're doing video. Like, I keep hearing
video is a very... All right.
It's like a necessary thing now.
Should we just jump into that now, or?
All right, let me just shout out these people and like read you their questions, and I'll read our answers, because we more or less agree.
We have a couple of podcasts that following us and we're following.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention another podcast too, and I saw I think it was, I don't know if it was a story or if it was like their post. I want to shout them out too, because I really enjoyed what she had to say about just like general what's coming up for their plans. So right now. So the first question in that our latest Monday thematic post, last Monday's post, what Monday was that? The 2nd? No, that wasn't the 2nd. This is upcoming 2nd. The 25th. Monday, November 25th, 2019. It was Standing Still podcast. Super interesting idea. Congrats on the new episode. What's your favorite part of doing your podcast? I thought that was a great question. I'm like, well, okay. It sounds like an easy question, but that's a good question.
Is it just like they're just curious? Or is it like some sort of like, oh, check us out kind of thing?
I have no idea.
Well, nevertheless, just say it for face value.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
So our response was, thanks so much for the love. Really appreciate it. And our favorite part of doing the podcast is really just the opportunity to be able to sit down with one another and have conversations about topics we really enjoy. The cherry on top is when listeners enjoy it just as much, if not more, than we do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that hits the nail on the head. Exactly why we're talking about what we're talking about right now.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So it's like, it's the same thing that we pulled from episode 1 to now, although like our topics are getting better. We're getting more invested in like this idea of exploring, I guess, certain philosophies, ideals, and stuff like that, just of like day-to-day life. I think one of the biggest things, and as cheesy as it sounds, like on paper or even seeing it written, it's just like the like, how are you doing today? Like is everything okay? Like, and I think that's definitely something that's like that plays in a lot, but kind of like behind the scenes with a lot of the things that we do, and kind of like how we approach situations and our lives individually, and kind of like this podcast too, because you have a lot of great insight when it like, I feel like collectively the insight that we have with respect to the way we've approached certain situations in life, and the kinds of conversations we've had with like certain friends, maybe certain members of family and what have you, and just like understanding and being able to not just be the listener, but also being able to be the gatherer of information to a point where it's like you more or less have an idea of what to say. So I think like on a collective note, us working as a team, it works really well. And in the last couple podcasts, it's gone really well.
It definitely, it's good that our like I at the last, what was the one podcast? Episode 8 was pretty good.
Episode 8 was really good.
I know one user, one of the people who follow us really enjoyed it. She put on her post like, that was a nice episode. It's different from the ones we usually do. Like we have like lighthearted ones, but like I enjoy the deep-hearted ones. Deep-hearted.
That's whatever. If that's a term or not, that's weird. I like the deep-hearted.
Yeah, because like it's kind of like the ones I wanted to do originally, like the whole philosophical ones. I know you were kind of like turned off by it, but I feel it's like we can't go like super in depth, like heavy theoretical types. It's just like our own twist on it, our ideas, our basic opinions on it. Like just like so, like with that one, it's how you view it and how I view it, and then we juxtapose those two and we compare it and see which ones why we view it that way and what's wrong with each other's ways, or more so, I think my way. I agreed with your ways, your viewpoint on it. Like, I don't know. I guess if you don't know what I'm talking about, you should probably listen to that podcast. But it's a very good podcast. It's changing your way of thinking. And I was thinking, like, as far as our podcast goes, I feel like we get pretty invested when it comes to stuff like lifestyle and social commentary, I guess, because we did the cultural one too. That our episode 5 was pretty.
Our Halloween episode got serious.
Yeah. But it's nice though. Like, even in our serious ones, we have like these lighthearted moments too, and I think that's pretty nice. Those are pretty good.
I mean, even the tail end of episode 9 for the last one about like holidays and Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we switched it up pretty seriously.
Yeah, it was just.
I know. I was listening to it, and I was like, like, as great as all this stuff is, like, it can be depressing real fast, and it literally switched like right there. Like, the whole mood changed. It wasn't too dark, but it was just like,
it was just like, we need to understand that you know, such and such is this, and XYZ is that.
Yeah.
So we gotta take a moment to kind of step back and realize those things, and I think so many of on a general sense, so many of people's issues is as a result. A lot of issues are as a result of not formalizing an opportunity to be able to take those steps back and just kind of really view the whole picture, but also zooming into kind of like it's just like on Google Maps, when you like zoom in, you can see the whole state of New Jersey, and you get a collective sense of what is this like, what's the layout like, and then it's just like you start zooming into the areas that you're interested in. You're zooming into the areas that maybe give you the most problems, that you're having the most struggles with, or the ones that make you that are working and are going well, in order to help better evaluate the details of your landscape, or in this case, the details of the situation you're in. And I think that a lot of times that people get advice, or they'll ask for advice, and they don't apply it, and you're really your own worst enemy at that point. And I know this came up a couple times for a couple posts that I've just seen recently. I think it was literally just yesterday or a day ago. And I've had this conversation so many times with Danny and some of my other friends, and it's really that. It's just like, when do you know to kind of just back away from someone as a result of their just negligence to actively put into practice the advice that they're getting. And a lot of the times, depending on who it's from, you're most likely going to get like pretty generally okay advice.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and this is the kicker, it's just that no matter, there's going to be the thing that you have to understand, like, you, quote unquote, the advice giver has to understand, is that for as many times as people ask for advice, unfortunately, a large majority of them kind of just want that. They just really want like someone to listen to their problems so they can vent and move on.
Yeah.
And aside from that, the whole like, oh, I need advice, but then not applying is as a result of them just not wanting, because most of the time you got to admit that you're wrong.
Yeah, or I know my cousin was telling me about this. It's like, don't give people advice if they don't ask.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like,
kind of thing. Because like, even if you do tell them, and then they're not gonna, if they don't apply it, then it's like, why you? But then on the other hand, I was telling them, I was like, well, what if you telling them will get into their heads, even if they don't do it, it's in the back of their minds, right?
Yeah, there's always
throwing it out there.
And I think that's really optimistic.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I am.
Yeah, you're the optimist.
Yeah.
And
unfortunately, or to my detriment, or possibly to, I don't know.
I think it's a really good way to think in the world we live in today. I'm
I'm worried because, on the other hand, it's like,
it's also really bad. But
yeah, because when things hit the fan, it really hits the fan for me, because it's like everything just turns to garbage real quick.
So
it's like, I was expecting this to happen because I'm so optimistic, and then suddenly everything sucks, and it's like,
so I don't know. I think no matter no matter what way you think, no matter whether you're an optimist, a pessimist, a realist, I think everything's obviously going to have its pros and cons, and these aren't things that we really need to keep reiterating. I mean, these are common sense things, but unfortunately, there's so many people that make it seem like these points have to be reiterated. Because, look, most of the time, people aren't ignorant.
Yeah.
It's not that they're dumb and they just like don't understand these really basic, common, I guess, like just life things, right? To put in to layman's terms. It's just they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it because it's not what they want. A lot like
they just want someone to listen.
They just want someone to listen. But even listening is like the difference between listening and hearing is wild. It's such a large gaping hole between the two.
I think I was watching Mr. Rogers yesterday.
Oh yeah,
it was such a good movie, and like I thought it was gonna be a biopic, but it was just like it's about a man like documenting this man's Fred Rogers' life, seeing if he's like the real deal, and in doing so, this guy, Mr. Rogers, actually documents this man's life instead.
Oh wow,
helps him out. It's a really beautiful story, but like what I'm trying to get at is, I really want to be like him. I think he's such a good example because I think we need more of people like him in the world, people who are willing to listen as opposed to just hear. Because in this day and age, in social media, where everybody's just like throwing stuff out there, whatever, it's like, oh, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, and nobody's actually like they look, not like the real you. Like when the other day when you were saying, when was it episode 8, in the beginning of episode 8, when your friend like hit you up, and it was just like it was like, oh, why'd you hit me up if you're not gonna actually
like talk with me? Yeah.
And I mean, I try to make more of an effort now to like actually hit you up and be like, because of that. And I think it's good to do that. The people you care about, just ask them, how are you, and actually like commit to it. Because make your day. Like, even you said it made your day when that person hit you up.
Yeah.
And it's also important to even don't ask it and then have something else to do. Like if you're gonna ask that, I feel like you should. Well, I guess it depends on the person, but you should probably be free. As opposed, like I know I was talking to my cousin last night, and like I started watching a movie and. Yeah, just be there for a person and listen, because I feel like people need more of that. People need to know that there's a reason to live and there's a reason that people care about them and they're loved. And even if you're not like famous or you're not like this big person, just this average person can make a huge difference, I think.
No, I 100% agree, and I think it's really difficult to know, like, to listen to most of the time, because unfortunately there's a lot more listening than there is like active practice of advice that has been given, which is unfortunate because there's an excess amount of listening to the point where now it's just getting to more, it's just like hearing. People just kind of like want to yell out their problems to someone, as opposed to like when you listen, you're actively taking in the information that you're receiving in order to be able to formulate some sort of constructive opinion and in turn give your perspective on the situation. Guess what that means? Typically means giving some sense of advice, some sort of it, all right? Even if it hasn't been asked. You're not an advice column, right? That's not what you're doing. If someone comes up to you and asks you for advice, it's different. There is a difference. There's a difference between giving your matter-of-fact perspective based on the information and giving advice. There's large difference.
I think with yesterday, I don't know if it's spoiling it, but taking this guy's, I don't know if he's a fictional character, but the guy's father was kind of a jerk to him. And I mean, he wasn't seeking out advice. He wasn't even like trying to get counseling. This guy Mr. Rogers just started talking to him and asking him, because like when he first met him, he had a freaking black eye because I guess somebody punched him
Mm-hmm.
because he got in a scuffle with his father. Well, he punched his father and somebody punched him. And then Mr. Rogers asked about it. And I don't think he gave advice so much as he just talked to him.
Yeah.
And I feel like people know what, like, you're not going to be able to get closure if your father dies. I mean, this is not what happened, but if say his father died, like, you're obviously not going to get closure. You're not going to be able to forgive him if he died, right? But sometimes somebody just needs to hear, I forgive you, or like, as opposed to just like venting it and getting advice from it. Like, how are you going to get advice if your father's dead, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just being there for someone and saying, I understand, and being in their company and just trying to make their day brighter means the world, I think.
Yeah, no.
And advice, I mean, advice is good if they're willing to listen, but, just being there, I think it's actively listening as opposed to just hearing. It's
so,
because like, imagine you tell your problems and you just forget the next day. It's like, why?
Exactly.
Then now I just feel garbage.
If you really want people to like listen though, versus like if you're just kind of like, I need to vent, blah 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 blah. All right, bye. Yeah, and then it's just kind of like then at that point you're really just asking someone to hear you out.
Yeah, which is not bad.
It's like hear you out, like just hear me vent, and then I'll feel better and move on. But I'm still gonna have this problem, and most likely it's not the first time I vented to you about this problem.
If it's the same problem, it's like
which is the that's the big thing though. Now
if
it's
you're
just
gonna talk about it,
the same problem.
Probably should be constructive about it as opposed to just venting it and then doing the same thing over again, kind of thing. Yeah.
So I mean, you're hearing, you're listening, and you're advice giving, and I don't know. There's so I mean, I always say I don't know, but I do know.
I've been trying to curb that for myself too.
Yeah, it's just like
in the podcast.
I mean, like honestly, at the end of the day, you can be as much of a friend as you can be, right? But if that person doesn't ask for the advice or asks for the advice and just doesn't put it in, like doesn't put it into practice, you need to you need to be that individual that takes that step back, that kind of scans through the layout and realize this is not worth my time and energy and ultimately my defeat anymore. It's time for me to move on in order to better invest my time and energy and effort into other people who potentially will listen, who will potentially also be there for me if I'm in a similar situation. It's time to get up, pack my things, and move on. And that's not a bad thing to do, to move on from someone.
How would you apply that here in this podcast? Because I know we've given advice.
So
as opposed to like, it's like, I know we compare it to like just giving advice to someone. This is a couple people listening probably right now. I think it's okay to give advice in this case. I mean, I know with 8 you kind of gave this advice of like, not guilting yourself over. Could it be worse? Like your problems. Don't guilt yourself over your problems. Was essentially the gist of that, of your view, because you can't compare problems to problems. That's what I learned from that. I think it's good to give that advice.
I think it's good to give a more general. I mean,
even if they don't listen,
I think it's good to give more of a general perspective or opinion on life matters, because that's more or less what we're doing. We're not like I said, we're not an advice column. We're not like Brittany wrote in the question, it's just your opinion that blah blah blah. Yeah, it really is. It's just like down to your perspective.
It's not
on
advice. It's just like our viewpoints in the world.
Exactly, and I think
that's not a bad thing.
And that's different than outright giving advice, because when you give advice, it's just like, Jeff, you wanted to talk to me about something, and you're like, yeah, Ezekiel, I have this specific problem, and I need a specific answer or a specific type of help with it. What can you tell me? Yeah. What do you suggest?
I mean, you're like a trained professional on this. You're just offering your 2 cents.
Exactly.
And it's funny. It's like not everybody agreed with your viewpoint on it.
And that's fine.
There's like people in my family are like, no, that's not right. Like there's problems can be compared, and You know, I see it from your point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I still share my opinions on it too. But you know, that's what it is. Comes down to, you know, it's just our opinions.
Yeah,
and I think that's what's the beauty of it, is like, we're not going to shove things down your throat with this podcast. It's
exactly.
like, it's just continuing the conversation, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, look, no matter,
we're just two guys chatting with you, trying to have a good time, you know. And I'm glad you guys are listening.
It's like, no matter what you say, no matter if you have a boatload or just a bucket of reasons, of rationales, of examples, there's always going to be that you'll never have everyone suddenly believe the same things that you believe.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
It's never 100%.
It's never going to be 100%. And I think that's the most difficult thing for people to understand, is that, or for people to accept. It's just like, for as much good reasoning or whatever that you give about something, it's just like, there are always going to be people that disagree. They're always going to be like, well, no, that's not right. And it's just like, okay.
Even to that, I can be like, oh, that's not true. There's certain black and white situations.
Yeah.
But even on that, it's like not 100% either.
It's just like, well, I mean, not really. You know,
like,
you can keep going on and on forever into so
like,
many specifics.
The whole like idea of calculus and limits, right? It's like, it's never like, it just goes to infinity.
It goes to infinity.
It's never like zero.
so I you know, that's one of the most difficult things to accept, because you feel defeated when you've done and explained yourself in the best way possible, but yet people are still kind of like, no, that's not right. That's not true. And you're just
I want to know what you're like. What is there a situation in particular you're like referring to?
No, it's like, I've heard a whole
amalgam of different.
No, I've heard many
scenarios.
like multiple scenarios from like different friends and whatnot recently, actually, about like their dealings with family members or
and
other
you've
friends
heard these problems before, to the point where it's like,
where it's just like, it's not that my you know, the person I'm speaking with is the one that's like just venting. They're talking to me. I asked them, I was like, you know, what's going on in your world?
Okay.
You know, what's going on with so and so? You know, I remember last time we talked about that, and this was happening. What's going on? So they explained to me what's going on, and they explained to me the situations that they're in. And basically, it's like this recurring theme with people with wildly different backgrounds and wildly different lifestyles, and it's just like this recurring theme of like, yeah, it's really annoying when you do everything you can for certain people, or you try and explain things in the best way possible, and it just kind of goes, it's all for naught. It's just all kind of like tossed to the wayside for whatever reason, because the person doesn't want to do it, because the person didn't really want advice to begin with, because the person
so you've given them advice and it's still
not me, other people.
Oh.
I mean, there have been plenty of situations where I myself have given advice and it hasn't worked out, and where it's just like, but it wasn't
with me. With me, it's happened.
It wasn't so much the sense of like, here's the advice,
take it.
It was more of just like, it was like what we were saying. It was just like, here's like a matter of opinion. Like, if, you know, this is what I think about it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you do what you want, because, you know, it's ultimately your decisions at the end.
Yeah,
I'm not going to tell you to take it or not, because
if your life gets screwed up, don't blame me, please. So just take it.
It's like a CYA. It's like, cover your ass.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's like, no.
Here's my advice, but you don't have to listen to it.
Yeah.
This is how I think.
And that's how I have to preface so much stuff now, where it's just kind of like, you have to be so careful. And but it's funny, because as careful as you have to be around like, well, this is what I think, but that's just me.
Yeah.
And it's just like, but even in doing that, it doesn't mean, typically people just are kind of like, yeah.
But even the fact that you listened, you asked, means a lot. I'm sure
it means a lot, but
even though you've heard the same problem
over and over, and like, I'm sure
the fact that you listened,
and obviously that means a lot. But you know, you as the person who's always kind of listening and who expends their time and energy in order to, you know, give their opinions.
Yeah, you kind of have to look at in the other person's shoes. Like
this is really draining.
Yeah, you kind of have to like, all right, am I being constructive here? Am I telling them I'm wasting this guy's wasting this guy's time, right? Yeah.
I think it's really draining. I think I hear stories and I'm like, gosh. Like,
at the end of the day, you can give all the advice you need, but you kind of have to find it within yourself to fix your own problems.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just like there's so much of just hearing stuff, and even if it doesn't directly happen to you, you start feeling tired, you start feeling drained, and it's just like, and you got to take it. Just put yourself in the other person's shoes.
Yeah.
Like the person you always rant to, the person you always vent to. Like, are you just, if you're gonna just rant, preface, just be like, I need to rant. Don't just be like, this is what's going on in my life, blah 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 blah, problems. That's it. Because then the other person's kind of left stuck. Like, should I give my opinion? Should I?
But I guess you can then
blah,
preface
blah.
it like, here's what I think about it. I guess, right?
Yeah, you could, but then it's just kind of like, even if you do that, even if you do that, it's just kind of like I don't know. You have a 50-50 shot of digging your own grave, I guess, of like getting yourself into a situation where it's just like you the person who's like, I'm gonna, even if it's just giving your opinion, you're kind of setting yourself up for just like this even further draining, or this sense of kind of like, oh, it seemed like it went really well, and it seems like they were receptive to what my perspective was. And that's a lot of times that's how the situation will end. It's just like, it seems like, oh wow, it seems like I got through to them, like it seems like it's gonna work, and then it never does, and it's just,
well, I guess you shouldn't see it that way then, right? It should just be like, here's what it is, take it or leave it. And
but then finally, I guess, like, to wrap that point up, it's just like to understand when enough is enough, versus like not even any longer saying like, here's my opinion, take it or leave it. Even that gets tiring after just a few renditions of it, hearing similar problems or from either the same people or different people, because it's just kind of like, well, most of the time people just leave it. So it just gets to the point where like, I know most of the people I talk to aren't ignorant, aren't stupid, aren't dumb, and most of the things I say is pretty freaking common sense.
So how would you?
It's just like, when I don't know the answer to, when do you know when to just pack up, and when do you know to just kind of like stop doing that? When do you know to just kind of like let them talk it out, basically vent to themselves or out loud to you, and you're just kind of like, yeah, man, that's rough. Versus like, well, if I was you, or like, well, like, not sure if you care to hear my opinion, blah, blah, blah. Like, when do you know to just kind of like be like, yeah, versus the trying to help them in any way?
That is a good question,
and
I think it depends. Maybe it's contextual, like depends on the situation.
It really does,
and the person.
Yeah, there's no black and white answer. As most things, there is no black and white.
And also, if they're willing to like if you can sense that they're just kind of like, oh, this is what's happening in my life, blah 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 blah, and then they just,
yeah, and it's just kind of like,
it's just like, and like you're trying to give your 2 cents, or like you're trying to talk and they're still going. It's just like, all right, this is more like a rant than a I need help.
Exactly. So I don't know. I think it gets really frustrating, really difficult very quickly. But it's just, you gotta understand when it's okay to just kind of stand your ground and be like, just nod your head and just be the listener, and that's it. You don't always have to say something. You don't always need a response.
Yeah.
And you have to gauge when that's okay for you. I'll just. Oh man, we got a lot of time on this. I'm gonna just run through like a couple of the other questions, read our answers really quick. But yeah,
questions.
Yeah, from that comment thing that I mentioned, I was just gonna shout out these little things really quick. So Young Culture Podcast, happy Monday and congrats on the new episode. That wasn't a question. This other one is just like, that's just a social media thing, and that was from Pod Sound School.
Right? Yeah, that was the one I was saying. Yeah. Like they said, like, our social media, that's how you run an actual podcast.
Yeah,
social media.
So that was really, appreciate all the love from the people just mentioned just now. And also the other one I was gonna briefly mention was the Canceled Culture Podcast.
Oh yeah, I saw that a couple of times.
Yeah, I see a couple of their stories or whatever, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool stuff. I guess it's in similar fashion of your original desire of like what we wanted to talk about. It's basically kind of like what they're doing. It's like this idea of like putting out what you get. It's just on a very general sense, and I think, that's obviously incredibly important. And I know I keep saying this, Most people know that. But the thing is, like, there's a huge difference in knowing something and understanding it.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
you can know that, like, you can know that, yes, Microsoft Word is a great tool. Do you understand Microsoft Word, or do you understand why Microsoft Word is a great tool?
As opposed to just writing on a
Knowing
piece of
that
paper.
Yeah, like, do you
and like comparing to other Word programs?
Yeah, like, do you actually understand?
Have you tried Apple's Word program?
Yeah,
it's garbage. Like, it makes no sense.
And for as often as I'll say, like, I know people know this, or I know you know this to someone, it's just like, I know you know this,
but do you really know?
But it's not even like, do you really know? It's like, but do you understand the implications of what's going on, of what you're saying or what's being said to you? Do you understand? And people are so quick to say yes, and it's just like, well, you clearly don't. If this is
the gravity of the situation,
yeah, like, you clearly don't. It's just kind of like, well, and even if you really do, then you would do something about it, because you would understand that this thing is not good.
What are you referring to?
It's the same situation. It's just like in the multiple scenarios I heard, where it's just like people giving the advice and people versus people just wanting to, like, rant and have listeners, or if they'll ask for advice, they don't take it. And just like, do you understand that in, talking about what you're talking about and all that stuff, particularly when you ask for advice and you don't put it into practice, do you understand how that, is a detriment to you and the people you're having these situations with?
Yeah.
In addition to, do you understand how, the effects it has on the people who give you the advice, but your non-reaction of implicating them, putting them into practice? Like, it's like, do you understand the gravity of, your actions? Do you understand what that ends up doing to the situation that you continue to complain about? Versus,
I feel that.
And
there's
the
like a bigger
effects
picture.
it has.
There's definitely a bigger picture. You have to. That's the idea of self versus selflessness, right? I mean, if you're going through a problem, it's good not to compare yourself, but at the same time, I know you go. Well, you talked about an 8 pod 8. It's like, do not. It's not good to degenerate that sense of self. However, I think being selfless is good. Because, if you're just venting about your problems all day, this what about the person on the other end? You
it's draining. It's all they hear. It's just like,
it's there's so much more going on in the world at large, and focusing on yourself won't help anybody, if that makes sense. Sometimes you helping out someone else can in turn help yourself. Just that feeling of being able to help someone and that sense of accomplishment and seeing the smile on their face is enough to make you feel better, make your day better. And maybe mentally that'll help you solve your own problems. That mental reinforcement that you might need, and that's just from being selfless,
yeah, no,
but this is all just
no, but I totally,
right?
I think it's really important to understand that the people who the people who you entrust to explain to them the problems and situations that you're having, right? They don't want you to continue writhing in misery.
Yeah.
And
look at the bigger picture.
And they're not giving you advice. They're not sitting there and listening to you multiple times for hours or whatever. They're not just doing
want the best
that
for you.
Yeah, exactly. They're not just doing that for them. They're doing that because they care about you.
Yeah.
And it's not, it doesn't, it's not only about fix your problems for the people who care about you. It's people want you to live a life that's best for you, to be able to they want you to be able to be strong enough, to be knowledgeable enough, understanding enough, in order to approach and correct the situations that you're in, that you find yourself in. They don't want to command your life. They care about you. They just want to provide you with any necessary tools or reinforcement and support to get better, to be where they think you should be.
Yeah.
Which is where most people should, everyone wants to be on the path to happy, be on that track to just like living a better and more fulfilling, less stressful life, right? And I think that's, again, understanding the opportunity to take a step back and look at everything. And people know that it's good, but do you understand why it's good? And they may say yes immediately, but understanding and knowing are not the same thing.
Understanding
why it's a good idea to take the step back and look at everything,
the
big picture, and then scan through and then hone in on certain things.
Yeah.
Versus knowing that I should do it, or knowing that it's good. Well, why? What is it going to do? And if you really understand why it's good,
understanding
is going to
look at their side.
And then
the listener's side.
Exactly. And understand, well, not just from the listener's side, but also like understanding why it's good to take those steps back and to look at everything, how it's affecting everyone. Obviously yourself, obviously the people that are also in that situation, and also those who are trying to support you and help you. Understanding all those things is really going to help enlighten, what's my plan of attack, quote unquote. How do I approach this? What areas to hone in on?
And it takes you out of your headspace.
Exactly.
It's like, it definitely does. Because I know that's like it's a psychological thing. I think it's the whole thing. I saw this one great post on Twitter. If you're having an anxiety attack, or maybe it was from a show, they say instead of focusing and honing in, because of that whole anxiety attack, everything's in your head, everything's like closing in on you, right? The person said, focus on like what's around you. So he was like, oh, look at that water bottle. Like, what color is that water bottle? What's your name? What color is that person wearing, and you get yourself out of your own headspace, so that way you stop closing in on yourself. Focus on the bigger picture, just like what you were saying. So it's a good way to approach problems, is looking at the bigger picture, as opposed to like, oh, it's crowding around me and it's closing in. And really, it's like it's not that bad if you do baby step and have plans of attack and look at it from different perspectives. It's like, I mean, you can vent about it all day, but be constructive about it. Look at it from like a bigger picture and talk to people who've gone through it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And
it's not the end of the world. We're all going through this together.
I think
Google's a great resource, but people.
And I think that's about all we can say about it. I mean, I'm sure we could spend, much more time on this and delving into specifics or whatever. And again, all the gray area, because it's just a spectrum of grays. But as is basically every situation in life.
And then there's people who are like, no, it's black and white.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like,
and
no.
that just makes it even more gray, right?
And then it's just like, well, why do you assume that? Because that, in and of its own right, is its own gray area.
I was gonna make an album called like Gray Spectrum. It's just like
of gray,
because like no issues, so black and white.
Yeah, no, but I guess that
interesting
was like
concept there.
Technically, like a large tangent there, but I guess reflecting on everything we've done so far and seeing where we've come to now. We went from talking about favorite fast foods in pod 2 to talking about what we're talking about now, and that's the direction we're headed in, and that's the direction we're sticking with. And I think it's much more fulfilling.
I think we can do a couple.
Like, obviously, we're gonna do some silly ones, but like,
I think you want to do a wine tasting.
Yeah, I did want to do a wine.
I'm not gonna get drunk, Mom. Don't worry. It's just sips.
It's just tiny little sips.
I don't know anything about wine.
I think it's the 4 S's of wine tasting. I remember I went to some wine tasting thing and did that. It's like sniff, swirl, swish, like sip. I don't know. It's like I forget exactly
about wine,
but.
And not be a drinker.
But it's appreciating the craft, the finer things in life, I guess. But just seeing that, if you've been listening the whole way, or if you're just starting now, this is essentially the direction that we're headed in. And this is the direction we're headed in, and it's something
snapshot of where we're at right now. This podcast, this one in particular,
and so we
reflecting on it.
We found our footing. gotta attune, like, kind of just like adjust, I guess, like our motto. Like, it's not just about nothing or anything. Like, we're about something.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna figure out something clever, and that hits home, at least for us. Like, it's a little bit more for home. But I'm glad that we left it general and we honed in much, to your point. And I'm really glad that you had, like, you stood your ground when it came to, like, man, we gotta, like, do these things. Like, it's a good idea to do these things because it's good. And so I'm really glad that you did that. Video is another thing that we're looking to do. It's not gonna be anything fancy, DSLRs and multiple crazy angles. Like,
the whole thing about it, the problem with the video is the editing aspect of it. It takes enormous amount of time, probably twice as long than audio.
Yeah.
But also it's like the one I edited. I actually have the coffee podcast up, Caffeination episode 4, the first part of it
on YouTube.
Yeah, and it's similar to the audio editing where you first have to find your kind of niche, how you go about editing and stuff like that. But I think once I get my footing, it could be better. Or we can get like a video editor, somebody we know. But that's the other problem, other solution to that problem thing.
I think that,
or we can just keep it pull it straight up. Like some podcasts.
I think like just like editing. Taking inspiration from other podcasts, like that also do video. You H3H3, you have your Ear Biscuits, you have your Joe Rogan, and it's just it's just a video. Like, I think
nothing super crazy.
I think the videos like that we'll do when we do like sillier things, we'll do like a more YouTube-esque, like more proper YouTube video.
Yeah,
like,
I think that's the angle I was going for with this one.
Like the coffee taste testing, the eventual wine taste testing. One day we will sit down, and I don't care if the hype is gone or we're past the trend. One day we'll sit down and we will try the different chicken sandwiches. One day we will sit down and try like the different, I don't know,
still haven't had it,
Oreos.
Man.
I don't know, like, it's fun little things that will obviously, silly things or whatever that's fun, that we're gonna obviously sprinkle in, and those will be like more YouTube-esque, and then you hear the audio as a podcast. But others where it's just kind of like it's basically the video portion of the podcast is really just gonna be the camera there, just recording us as we talk, as we're doing now. So not really much editing there. It's really just going to be
just want to see
posted
faces,
up.
Man.
Yeah, but seeing people talk and the reactions and everything, and it's like
what's the whole communication's like what 60% facial or whatever. It's like physical.
It's a large percentage,
and as opposed to just like you only get 20% of like that communication from just audio.
Yeah. So and this isn't my idea. This has been Jeff's idea. This has been Danny's.
People asked after the first episode, like, "Hey, is there video?"
But yeah, so like there are a handful of people that are talking about.
We're gonna work on
something. Even some people that like don't listen, and they're like, "Oh, you have that? Like, oh, do you do video?" And it's just kind of like, I guess that's a thing now from what I think. So I'm like, okay, all right, you guys have won me over. And we're gonna season 2 and all the seasons thereafter we'll have video podcasts, and anything that's gonna be a YouTube video proper, we'll have the fancies when it comes to the editings and the zoom ins and the
please
close-ups.
Bear with us. Be patient with us when we're trying to figure this out, just like you did with the audio, guys.
Yeah,
it's gonna be work in progress.
And please, please, if you're one of the early ones or whatever time you listen, if you find a problem and it hasn't been outwardly addressed on like our Instagram or something like that, it means that we don't know there's a problem. So please,
I didn't know there was a problem with Pod 8 originally.
Neither did I. We did not know.
We saw one of my friends posted up a comment on it.
So please, we really ask you guys to help us, support us, and give us, all the feedback that whatever comes to mind, whatever you think is better or whatever, give us the feedback. And we're gonna do our best to adjust and tune in and just kind of make those little tunings in order to kind of correct things that we're either doing wrong, or if there's audio or video issues, to correct them as quickly as we can. All right. And if something sounds bad, if the video is trash, like if the sound is off,
please be constructive.
Don't listen to it.
Don't listen.
Just tell us the problem. Stop it. Pause it. Stop what you're doing. Move on to something else. Because we want to deliver the best quality that we can at this moment in time and in the near future. We want to deliver to you the best quality, audio entertainment, listening entertainment, visual entertainment that we can. And we can do pretty solid stuff.
I mean, if you're a consistent listener, like we're going to do the best. I mean, I was going to say this too, like we appreciate you guys who've listened from the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. So it's great. It's great to have
honestly like
that support.
I know from the beginning there was like it's actually 70 plays on the podcast itself, and it was 70 views, like because the YouTube views are separate. 70 views on YouTube. It's like 140 people literally. Now it's like what, maybe like, should we say it like?
Oh, it's less.
It's a lot less now. However,
but that's
the fact is that you guys are still listening after like what, this is like now the 10th episode.
Yeah,
it's great. I mean, I appreciate even if one person is only listening, like
it is what it is.
And but we appreciate you, like if we're making a difference and you're enjoying it, like that's all that matters. I think you get something out of it.
So but yeah,
thank you again. Thank you.
Let us know if there's any issues or whatever in future stuff. Let us know immediately. Just pause it and we will notify you when it's corrected so you can enjoy it at its peak. All right, it's peak quality.
Absolutely.
Because that's what we want you guys to do, and we want for you guys to have. So yeah, season 1 is great. Found our footing, and still gonna be working out the kinks with video and stuff like that. But no, we definitely plan on going this route, and we obviously, like we said, we're gonna have sprinkling some sillies and some fun stuff or whatever, like funnies or whatever. But if this wasn't what you really wanted or what you expected, we apologize. But we hope that you find some of the things that we talk about helpful or at least relatable to some extent. Because I know there are some people that just like, oh, I don't want to listen to another like advice thing, or I don't want to listen to life things. But we hope that we can make it as entertaining, but also as educational and thought-provoking as possible. So
yeah, continuing the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. So all that being said, thank you so much for everyone who's been listening. For future listeners that hopefully come here and that we can get, please.
Hello from 2019.
Yeah, so please,
November 30th.
Please,
or December 2nd.
Spread the word about this podcast, Your Daily Brew, YDB. Spread the word to friends, family, coworkers, whoever. If you see someone wearing headphones, tell them. Tell them to, hey, when you're done listening to whatever you're listening to, listen to these guys.
Check these guys out.
Appreciate all the support for all those who've been doing it so far. And, much love to everyone who's been listening and who's stuck with us since the beginning. And it's only going to, continue to get better with your support. So, hand in hand, this would not work without having a community behind us. And we really appreciate you guys. So,
season 1.
Yeah, season 1 wrap. Thank you to our beginning and continually growing, fingers crossed, Your Daily Brew, YDB family. So, thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Oh, enjoy your rest of your year.
Yeah,
Look forward to the
PS. Yeah, enjoy your holiday season. Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas, New Year, everything, your celebrations with your family and friends and whoever it is that you get together with. Be safe.
We got the extras coming up too, right?
Be safe, be happy, be healthy, and do your best to talk with as many people as possible and have meaningful conversations, because life is life, and we only get to sit down with certain people just a few times throughout. So make the most of your time with those. Aside from that, on a lighter note, we're going to have a bunch of behind the scenes and dumped and binned pods where you hear us get kind of all over the place, like existential and philosophical. But maybe those topics will be enjoyable. And if you guys want like a redo of those, like in a better light and better stuff, let us know and we'll happily do it. But keep letting us know. Give us the feedback.
We very much appreciate your feedback.
Definitely. And we love you guys.
Peace. Thanks for sipping along with us. If you'd like to stay up to date with our latest shenanigans and even some behind the scenes, give us a follow on our Instagram page @ydb.pod.
Let's catch up again next week. Peace.